It's in the name. BestHotelRates.com.
All right, let's do it. Wednesday edition of the show, Hump Day. I know, it just makes me sound old. Good to have you with us. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. You can watch us. If you go over to Twitter right now, at the back page, there is a feed of the show available there each night. Also on YouTube, the Decibel 88 channel. If you just go and search for that, or just search for the cash-in, I'm sure you'll find it. We're really on a zillion different platforms, but there's no point sitting here for a minute of the show and getting into it. If you're looking for it, you'll find it. Simple as that. We got a lot to do in this first hour of the program. Monty Poole will join us coming up in about 35 minutes. Does a great job, NBC Bay Area, covering the Golden State Warriors. Somebody I've wanted to talk to for a few days to get his thoughts on this whole situation. Somebody who's around the team all the time and sort of get a sense for where are the Warriors right now. Because when you hear Steve Kerr talk about this team the way he is, in the context of the worst controversy or the worst crisis that the organization's ever had to deal with, when you hear things like that, it certainly jars you a bit if you've watched the way the Warriors have operated over the Steve Kerr era, the Bob Myers era. So we'll get into that coming up about 30 minutes from now on the program. We'll get into the playoff baseball, live betting. Last night, if you listened, you would have been 4 for 4 in your live betting as it pertained to the Dodgers and the Padres. We'll try and see if we can make you some more money tonight. But 4 for 4 last night on the live bets I gave you during the game. That's cash, man. That's straight cash, homie. So we'll try to do the same tonight. We're keeping an eye on the Padres and the Dodgers. Phillies and the Braves. That one is late with the Braves up 3-0. Padres and Dodgers tied at 3. We'll get into the Draymond Green problem for the Warriors. And it's self-inflicted wounds, plain and simple. We'll talk about that as we continue in this first hour of the Cash In. I'm Jason Page. Good to have you with us all across America on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. If you feel like bringing back like a milkshake or a frappuccino, I would not fight you. If you're going downtown, plenty of places to get a milkshake or a frappuccino. I'm saying, if you want to. If you don't, I'll be okay. Well, it would be either it's easier to consume a milkshake than it is to eat food during the show. So you do whatever. 12 minutes past the hour. SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. The phone number to be part of the show is 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can also tweet at the show at the back page. Feel free to do so at your leisure at the back page. And again, you can watch the show there. If you just look on my timeline, you'll actually see the video feed of the show, and we welcome you to watch us. After you get out of the car or turn off the stream of the show on the SportsMap Radio app, if you feel like watching, please do. We always appreciate it. Austin Rodriguez producing tonight, pushing the buttons in Houston at Master Control. We'll get into the playoff baseball and the live betting coming up in about 12 minutes. The Braves are just about to finish off the Padres. Matter of fact, I think they may have just done so. Braves lead 3-0 in the ninth. So Atlanta on its way to evening up that series at 1 game apiece. Still, the Phillies have done what they needed to do, and that is get one in Atlanta and sort of reclaim the home field advantage in that series. This will be the first loss for the Phillies in this postseason. Padres and Dodgers are playing a barn burner out in Los Angeles with the score tied at 3. In the bottom of the fourth. These two teams just slugging it out right now. One team scores, the other team scores. They're just going back and forth at each other with single runs. Freddie Freeman with a home run in that game, as does Max Muncy. Monty Poole will join us to talk NBA, in particular the Golden State Warriors, who are fascinating to watch right now. We'll chat with him coming up. He does a great job with NBC Sports in the Bay Area, the regional network out there. They carry the Warriors games. He'll join us coming up in about 25 minutes. And I want to start with the Draymond Green story, because this is the product. What's happening right now with the Warriors, and Steve Kerr talked about it today, and you'll hear from him in a second. Steve Kerr sort of got into, what this situation has been like for this team. And he used some phraseology that just goes to show you how big of a problem Draymond Green caused for this organization. Now, I would argue that this story wouldn't have had nearly the legs it did if the video didn't emerge on TMZ. And you could think of what you want of TMZ and the sources and methods they use by which to get information, paying for it, all that stuff. But they bring significant things to light. Sometimes they get it wrong. Sometimes they don't necessarily do it in the most ethical ways. But if this video doesn't come out, I don't think the Warriors are forced to do the sort of introspection that they've had to do when it comes to Draymond Green. So here is Steve Kerr earlier today talking about the sanctioning of Draymond Green.
He is going to come back to practice on Thursday. He's been fined. He will not be suspended. I expect him to play Friday in our last preseason game and on opening night.
So making it very clear they were not going to suspend him, which I still think is the wrong move, but that's the route this organization has decided to go. That gets into the broader topic, which I'll get to in just a second. Here's Kerr talking about this process.
We have spent the last week in deep discussions with all of our key figures in the organization, including Jordan and Draymond, of course, Steph, all of our players, Bob, myself. And I can tell you there have been a lot of conversations, individual, one-on-one discussions, players-only discussions, everything that you can think of, all the different combinations that are possible to have in a conversation. We've had them. It's been an exhaustive process.
This is the most interesting comment and the one that got the most attention. This was Steve Kerr putting this in perspective in terms of everything this organization has faced in his tenure.
Never easy. No matter what decision you make in a situation like this, it's not going to be perfect. This is the biggest crisis that we've ever had since I've been coach here. It's really serious stuff.
Biggest crisis we faced is what Steve Kerr said. But let's be honest about it. It is a crisis of their own making. And this is the price when you take the approach of, not my little Johnny, or, everybody does it, or, it's not that big a deal. This is the price you pay as the Warriors, as an organization, when you allow Draymond Green to run wild the way he has for this franchise from day one that he's been there. He's been a guy with behavioral issues on the floor for as long as you can remember. And it's great when you're winning. And it's great when you're the top of the heap and you can put up with it. But when the payoffs and the returns on somebody like a Draymond Green at this stage of his career can certainly be questioned when you start talking about what his next contract looks like, if that's with the Warriors or if he winds up somewhere else, then this shtick ain't so much fun. And most of all, when there's video of Draymond Green cold-cocking one of his teammates in a practice after the two apparently had words before the video we saw, well, then it becomes an even bigger problem. And that is a problem that was allowed to fester over the years, and that's something that happens because of the way the Warriors have handled Draymond Green all this time. Needn't we forget the big hullabaloo on the floor during a game between him and Kevin Durant, arguably the best player in the league, who came there to win a championship? And the words exchanged between those two? So this isn't the first time you've had Draymond Green having issues with teammates. It isn't the first time you've had behavioral issues. So why is anybody surprised that it escalated to a point where he almost knocked out one of his own teammates? So if I were the Warriors, I would have suspended him. The problem is, at this point, it's too far gone. At this point, if you're the Warriors as an organization, this situation has gone too far, and you're not going to get a change in behavior from Draymond. He knows he's at the end of his deal anyway. He'll either keep playing or he'll retire and go into the broadcast booth. He's somebody that has a lot of opinions and knows a lot about the game, and will probably have a good career ahead of himself in broadcasting. You look at guys like Charles Barkley and Shaquille O'Neal, Kenny Smith. I could see him fitting right in if one of those guys decides they want to step down and he wants to step in. Or if he decides to go to ESPN and do the same thing. But make no mistake about it, this problem that the Warriors have, this crisis, the biggest they've ever faced, it's all at their own doing. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can tweet at the show at the back page. Austin, you got to tell me who's calling so I could introduce them. From where? Okay. Dave in Connecticut, you're on with Jason Page on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Go ahead. Dave, are you there? I hear, yeah. Okay, Dave, go ahead. What sports did I play in high school? I played basketball, I played baseball, I played tennis, I played golf. All right. Okay, thanks for the call. Appreciate it, Dave. I mean, I don't know what that was about, but okay. But at any rate, you look at Draymond Green at this stage of his career, the way he behaves, And this is precisely the kind of behavior you should expect because he's been allowed to run wild and do whatever he wants to do throughout his entire career. And this is the price you pay for that if you're the Warriors. And it's going to be a very interesting 5-6 months for this organization because Draymond Green only knows how to play the game one way. And by the way, I don't say that as a knockout on him. He's got one speed, and it's generally full speed ahead. He plays the game hard. He plays it with passion. And just because I think he's a poorly behaved, at times unprofessional player, it doesn't take away that I think he's a talented player. He's meant a lot to that franchise over the years. And he's going to give you effort. He is an effort guy. Part of his success is just that. The fact that he gives so much effort on a night-in, night-out basis. But like I said, it's a problem of the Warriors making. And I'm still fascinated if you're Jordan Poole, how you play alongside a guy. Now, look, these things have happened for teams over the years. You know, we heard about the whole Michael Jordan issue with Steve Kerr during the Last Dance documentary. We know that Kobe Bryant and Samaki Walker got into it back in the day with the Lakers. And I mean, so these things happen. But with this organization and the way they've operated over the years, this is something a bit different that they're going to have to navigate throughout the year, and I'm interested to see how they do it. Monty Poole will join us in 17 minutes to talk about it from NBC Sports Bay Area. 1-800-224-2004 on Twitter at the back page. We'll get into the live betting aspect of the Padres and the Dodgers, update you on that game. It's all over. The Braves have beaten the Phillies 3-0 to even that series at 1 game apiece. We're back with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. You got to be careful screening these calls, dude. You got to be careful because I don't know if you know what happened. 2004. You can also hit us up on Twitter at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter at The Back Page if you're looking to be involved in the show. Monty Poole coming up in 13 minutes to talk some NBA. Get some thoughts with him on the Warriors and Draymond Green and what we were just discussing a few minutes ago, whether or not the punishment fits the crime. What's the organization going to do going forward for Draymond Green, his contract situation, Jordan Poole, his contract situation. It's a lot. So there's a lot to digest. Not to mention the fact this is, arguably one of the best teams in the NBA. Matter of fact, I don't think they're ranked high enough when you look at the odds for the upcoming NBA season. I think they are much better than the NBA champions. It's kind of crazy. The NBA champions from 7 months ago, 6 months ago, whatever it is, are currently the fourth best odds to win the championship this year. And on what basis? They're only going to get better. Wiseman back in the mix now and healthy, and he's going to grow and get better as a player. Jordan Poole, another year older. And yes, I know some of your stars on this team and Curry and Clay and Draymond are a year older as well, but I think there's at least one more full tank of gas in the Warriors as it relates to this season for them to be a title contender. How do you put the Clippers, who haven't even sniffed an NBA championship as currently comprised, how are you putting them ahead of the Warriors or even on the same level as the Warriors? That's nuts to me. I know the Bucks are good. The Celtics have now dropped out of the top spot. When we started the preseason, the Celtics were the betting favorite to win the NBA championship. They're now second to Milwaukee. I'm still not convinced an NBA championship winner is coming out of the Eastern Conference, but I guess we'll have to, out of the Western Conference, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. We're keeping an eye on the baseball. As I said, just 2 games today. One of them has gone final with the Braves beating the Phillies 3-0. We're keeping tabs on the Padres and the Dodgers. That game 3-3 in the bottom of the 5th. Those 2 teams just exchanging blows. And right now on the money line, plus 134 for the Padres. The Dodgers are at minus 172. And the Padres are plus 1.5 on the money line, but you're going to have to pay some juice on it. Minus 280 if you want the Padres, plus that 1.5. I said last night, I told you how I feel about this. These close playoff games, if somebody told you right now, you can basically have the 1.5 runs, middle of the game, Padres and the Dodgers, Padres needing this game, otherwise they go down 2-0 in a best of 5. How would you not take the Padres plus 1.5? I'm not saying take them on the money line, but I don't know how you wouldn't take them on the spread at the live betting line at 1.5. I don't know how you wouldn't take them. Let me know what you think. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004, and again on Twitter, you can hit me up there at The Back Page. Again on Twitter at The Back Page. Baseball tomorrow, you've got 2 more games. I don't know how it's going to play out with the weather in New York. This Braves game tonight was delayed for a bit. They're talking about weather issues in New York tomorrow between the Guardians and the Yankees, and it always gets tricky when you start talking about weather delays and you're trying to bet a baseball game, especially before it starts. Once a game's underway, it's a little easier, but if you go and bet the Yankees tomorrow, they play an inning and then they have an hour rain delay and you lose Nestor Cortez, or if you bet the Guardians and you lose Shane Bieber, it makes betting on that game before it begins and before you have a really good understanding of the weather. When you're talking about betting on sports, you have to look just as much at the weather in a lot of these situations in sports like football, like baseball. You have to have a keen eye on the weather because it can determine a lot in terms of where your money's going or if it's going anywhere at all if you just leave it alone. But I don't know how you bet against the Yankees when they're playing the Indians. I see it. Did it again, Austin. I said the Indians. It's the Guardians. I'm telling you, we got to have like a shock thing on me. Every time I say the wrong name, either on the Washington football team, now known as the Commanders, or on the Cleveland baseball team, now known as the Guardians, I have got to like have something that stuns me every time. Like one of those big hands that Nickelodeon used to have back in the day that just smacks you in the head. That's what I need. Because this happens. It happens to me far too much. So the Yankees tomorrow are going off with Nestor Cortez against Shane Bieber. The Yankees are at minus 142. The Guardians are at plus 120. And quite honestly, I don't think that's enough to even think about betting the Guardians. There's not enough incentive. There's no value in it in betting the Guardians when I think honestly, if we were pricing this fairly, it should be plus 150. The Guardians can't score. The Yankees are at home. Cortez has been as dominant as anybody in baseball this year. You could argue he's the Yankees' best starting pitcher, and he starts game 2 after Garrett Cole finally gives the Yankees what they've been looking for, a good start in game 1. I mean, if the Guardians were at plus 150, I'd say maybe. But there's no way. I mean, the Yankees at minus 142, that's the bet. That's the only bet. I wouldn't touch anything else in this game. Mariners and the Astros, how does Seattle respond after the heartbreaking loss in game 1? Up 6-2, up 6-4 in the ninth when Yordan Alvarez does the unthinkable and walks it off with a 3-run homer against Robbie Ray after you get one of the worst managerial decisions that we've seen in a postseason in a long time from Scott Servais. And the Astros, who had Justin Verlander get knocked around and only able to go 4 innings, a game Seattle has to win. When you beat up on Justin Verlander the way they did, you have to win that game. Instead, they find themselves inexplicably down 0-1. Here's the good news, and it's the reason I would take them tomorrow. Luis Castillo is pitching. And he has been the most impactful player picked up at the trade deadline, bar none. It's got to be Luis Castillo's day tomorrow. He's been waiting and wanting this opportunity. He gets it for this Seattle team tomorrow. I think he shows up in a big spot and Seattle wins that game. It is the early game of the day, 3:38 p.m. Eastern. So by the time we come on the air tomorrow night, that game will have been decided, and we'll see if I'm right. I think the Mariners win tomorrow, though. Plus 136. I think that's the play tomorrow because the Astros are minus 162. I mean, there's zero value. That's kind of the lazy pick. But if you've watched Luis Castillo and how he's pitched this season in big spots against the best teams in baseball, this to me is a no-brainer. Luis Castillo plus 136 is the pick for tomorrow. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can hit us up on Twitter throughout the show at The Back Page. You're welcome to do that again on Twitter at The Back Page. We'll talk with Monty Poole coming up in a couple of minutes, get his thoughts. NBC Sports Bay Area, rather. Somebody I used to talk to back in my Bay Area sports radio days. We'll get his thoughts on this very interesting Warriors situation as they get ready to start the regular season with Draymond Green coming back to the team after sitting out for a few days. How's the franchise handling it? We'll see what Monty Poole has to say about it. He covers the team for NBC Sports Bay Area. That as we continue on this Wednesday edition of The Cash-In. I'm Jason Page. Glad to have you with us. SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. We roll along on this Wednesday edition of the show. You heard Steve Kerr earlier talking about this drama unfolding within the Warriors organization. In case you missed it, here's how Kerr described this entire Draymond Green saga.
No matter what decision you make in a situation like this, it's not going to be perfect. This is the biggest crisis that we've ever had since I've been coach here. It's really serious stuff.
So that kind of puts it in perspective. And with that backdrop, we bring in Monty Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area, does a terrific job covering the Warriors, joins us tonight here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Monty, were people surprised in the room to hear Steve Kerr describe this situation in those words, to say it's the biggest crisis that this organization has faced?
No, I don't think so, because it is. You know, they've had a few, and pretty much all of them around Draymond, but this was the most extreme. You know, they had back in 2016 where Draymond and Steve Kerr got into a big squabble at halftime of a game in Oklahoma City, and Draymond got, really irate, from what I understand, and really it could have gotten physical, but, cooler heads prevailed. And, of course, that was in November 2018, when Draymond and Kevin Durant had their spat right there in center court for everybody. We could all see that. But this was Draymond punching down. He basically one of the team's leaders, of the old head, going after one of the team's young guys. And it's off the punch, which I'm sure you have by now. It had, as Mike Tyson used to say, it had bad intentions. It wasn't a powder puff punch. So, I think that's part of it. But also, Draymond can opt out of his contract next year. Jordan Poole was trying to get an extension between now and opening night. So there's all this other stuff in the air that's going on too. So this is the kind of thing that could really kind of undo what the Warriors are trying to get together before the season starts. So we're going to find out.
Monty, I asked this at the start of the show tonight, and I'll ask it to you as somebody who covers the team. You just described all these incidents involving Draymond Green over the years. So when Steve Kerr says this is the biggest crisis we've ever faced, and I say in return to that, well, it's a crisis of your own making because of the way you've kind of allowed Draymond to act within the borders, of the sovereign state of the Golden State Warriors. It almost to me feels like they've sort of set the tempo or sort of set the pace by which Draymond runs on.
Yeah, I don't think that's out of the question. I think that over the last week, I think that's been a topic of discussion. Among the guys at the Warriors upstairs, did we enable this? By giving Draymond so much latitude, so much room to do things that are out of pocket. And so they also have to ask themselves, okay, if as an organization, we claim to have certain principles. Is this something that our principles will tolerate, And so these are all things that are part of this. And I think what surprised people a little bit was that Draymond was coming back as soon as he is. I think people thought it would be a little longer separation, maybe until opening night. But, this basically was 3 practices and 2 preseason games. So it wasn't a harsh sentence by any means. It was relatively easy, but it couldn't happen if not for Jordan Poole saying, look, it happened, we're done, let's just play ball. And Steve made it clear that Jordan's authorization of this whole decision was huge. If Jordan said, no, F that guy, then this wouldn't be happening. But that is apparently not what Jordan said, and Jordan and Draymond have had their own meetings, and so apparently Jordan feels comfortable moving forward with those things as they are.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. We're talking with Monty Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area, does a terrific job on the Warriors, talking about this Draymond Green situation and the start of the Warrior season. I mean, it's a no-win situation for Jordan Poole. What's he going to say? Yeah, he's going to be the guy that breaks up the threesome of Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Stephen Curry, especially in a situation where he's trying to get the most money he can out of the Warriors prior to the start of the season. I mean, he's really in an unenviable position. Being around the team and sort of seeing the way he's handled this situation, what have you come away with?
No, I think I'm not surprised that Jordan is over it. He prides himself on being tough. I mean, he doesn't look tough, and like I tease him, he likes cats. He's a cat guy. And you don't think a cat guy is a being tough guy, but Jordan is from Milwaukee, and he's told me many stories about, how Milwaukee basketball works and how, you can't be, if you're going to play basketball in the wintertime in Milwaukee, you got to be tough. It might be 5 degrees outside, but people go outside and play basketball. It's sort of like Milwaukee's sort of an offshoot of Chicago, where if you can handle the wintertime there, you can pretty much handle anything. And so he is tougher than he looks. And, as witness, the punch buckled his knees, but guess what? 20 minutes later, he was out there shooting jump shots in practice. And the next day, he was in a full scrimmage, and there's no mark. And he was hit other than the video we saw and what we heard. So I think Jordan is a guy who can get past this. Steve describes him as mature, and I would say in many ways he is. But I think that's part of his upbringing. His dad coached him for part of his upbringing, and they did some traveling basketball. So he's been around the block. He's seen some things in Milwaukee and on the road. So this, to him, is not a huge deal. But what made it huge is that it's an NBA deal, and everybody is talking about it for a full week.
So many people have talked about Stephen Curry's leadership in this from the player perspective. Can you give us some sort of insight in terms of, his growth as a leader and how that has sort of paid dividends for him in this situation, in this drama?
Yeah, well, Steph, one of the reasons why this organization has been as successful as it has the past 8, 9 years, 10 years, is because Steph and Steve Kerr are very much alike in the sense that they have a really great perspective on things. Basketball is great and they love it, but they also see the big picture. They always see the big picture. Like the story I tell people all the time is that last season, the Warriors lost in Phoenix. Tuesday night, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday night, and Steph had the worst shooting night of his career. Absolute worst. Like 4 for 21 or something like it was the worst. And the Warriors flew home that night. And the next afternoon, early that afternoon, like 1 o'clock, Steph showed up at a food bank and donated millions of dollars. And basically sat and hung out with the people at the food bank, all the employees there. There was probably 100 people. I was there. Probably 100 people were there and signed autographs, took pictures. You would never have known that the previous night was the worst night of his shooting career because he put it behind him. And Steve is much the same way in that they see things beyond the game. And so I think in Steph's case, that's what he does really well. Is he makes people understand that, okay, what happened in a moment does not define what happens in a season. Doesn't define what happened in a lifetime. And he has a gift of making people understand that, yeah, this is going to suck. It shouldn't have happened. But let's think about this on the long haul. Let's take the big picture view of this and say, look, what are our options here? Do we give up on the season? Do we walk away? What do we do here? And over time, that gets into the minds of other people around him, and they kind of gravitate toward him for that. So he's not a yell guy. He's not a rah-rah guy. He's just a perspective guy and a guy who has a really mature outlook on life. And I think that's his great quality is that he just gets it, as people say. He gets it. He understands. So, and Steve is much the same way.
Well, you bring up Steve Kerr, and I mean, that's the most logical link to this story because obviously what he endured with Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan, you know, everybody's talked about it by now, knocking him out. And you know, The Last Dance sort of documented that brilliantly. I mean, could there be a more perfect head coach for this sort of situation? And how hands-on has he been versus allowing the players to sort of work this out amongst themselves and decide at what pace they want Draymond Green brought back here?
Yeah, I think based on what I've heard from people inside is that there have been, the way it was put to me, hundreds of conversations involving dozens of people. And Steve, Bob Myers, the general manager, Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, those Sean Livingston, who's retired but still, you know, works for the team. These guys were all a part of these conversations and brought this back to where it is now. And again, you know, it wouldn't be where it is now if Jordan didn't sign off on this. And I'm not surprised that he did. I'm surprised that the Warriors said, if you're okay with this, we're okay with this. And that's a little surprising. I thought they would be a little harsher.
Before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the team on the court. I'm floored when I look at odds makers putting the Clippers basically in the same spot for the odds to win the NBA championship as the Warriors. I don't know how you elevate the Clippers to that point when, frankly, with this group and, you know, with Kawhi and Paul George, and I get all the injury concerns, that people put them on the Warriors level. Do you put them there? I mean, based on what you've seen, does that seem fair to you?
I kind of get it because when Kawhi Leonard is healthy, to me, he's a top 5 player in the league. And so if he is on his game, I think the Clippers are the biggest threat to the Warriors in the Western Conference. Now, we don't know if he'll be on his game. We've heard great things about training camp and preseason that he looks great. He's moving well. I like what the Clippers look like with Kawhi coming back. Paul George, I think, is a tremendous player. Let's see what John Wall looks like. You know, let's see what Johnny Wall brings. And I think Ty Lue is a top 5 coach. So I think they're in a good position, and they have an owner in Steve Ballmer who is not unwilling to spend. I mean, he's the richest owner in the game. I think the richest owner in sports. So he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. And so I think the Warriors and Clippers are definitely the best 2 teams in the West. I think it's going to be so much fun seeing how it plays out because there are people who think that the Clippers can be coached to defeat. And that is because I keep hearing that, you know, Paul and Kawhi can be dealt with on offense if you have the right defenders. And in terms of making them uncomfortable. making them shoot shots they don't want to shoot. So these are things we look forward to seeing, but I think that's the joy of getting the season underway beginning next week is that the Warriors and Clippers are, I think, the best in the West and just the East. I still think Milwaukee is really good. Boston, I'm a little concerned about. Philadelphia can be good. So Miami's going to be in the middle. So there's a lot of possibilities there. But I think in the West, it's Warriors and Clippers. And then you get to the Denvers and the Dallases and the Memphises and the other teams.
Great stuff from Monty Poole. NBC Sports Bay Area does a terrific job covering the Golden State Warriors. Hey, listen, I'm glad we got to catch up. Enjoy it, and hopefully we get to talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. See you soon. Take care.
I love Monty Poole joining us here on the show. And look, it's the West is just so stacked. You heard him mention he didn't even mention the Pelicans. How good is New Orleans? I mean, the Pelicans are so good. And I don't even know if we know how good they are because obviously what they have coming back with Zion Williams. I mean, this is a team that made the playoffs last year without Zion Williamson playing a single minute. They're going to be good. Love watching Ja Morant get a year older. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show at the back page. We'll come back, wrap up this hour of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. So just a FYI, All right, thanks to Monty Poole for stopping by the show, giving us some thoughts on the Warriors. If you miss anything from the show, by the way, we take the best of it and put it into the Cash In podcast. Check it out. It's on all of your favorite podcasting applications. We take the best of the show, condense it down, give it to you in the Cash In podcast. Next hour, Dak Prescott throwing today. But will he play this week? We ask the same about another star quarterback that a team is waiting for to return. And Dennis Bernstein will join us from the fourth period, Sirius XM. Get some thoughts with him on the NHL, which has started its season. Did you know that? Padres lead the Dodgers 4-3, top of the seventh. Padres now at minus 220. I told you to take them when they were getting a run and a half. And if you had listened, you'd be pretty happy right now. Top of the seventh, 4-3 Padres on top of the Dodgers. Real quick, make sure if you have not done so yet, go and download the Jock MKT app. JockMKT.com is the website, but if you download the app, you can get yourself a 100% deposit bonus right now for listeners and viewers of the Cash In. Use promo code CASHIN for your 100% deposit bonus up to $100. It's like the stock market, except for athletes. Jock MKT. It's the jock market. Stay in the game. It takes fantasy sports to a whole new level. Top of the hour right around the corner, and then we'll talk about Dak Prescott on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Stay with us. All right, one down. right, another hour starts right now on SportsMap Radio, the SportsMap Radio app. Happy to have you with us, keeping tabs on the playoff baseball. We will do our first hockey spot on the show later this hour. Look, we've been on the air since September 5th, and we have not touched hockey. And that's why we bring in our buddy Dennis Bernstein, who will join us about 35 minutes from now to talk about the start of the NHL season. As it relates to the playoff baseball, the only game going on right now is the Padres and the Dodgers, 4-3 San Diego as they play. They're about to go to the bottom of the 7th. And I told you, when this game was 3-3 in the 5th, I said, take the 1.5 that the Padres were getting, even though there was a little added juice to it. I told you that was the pick. Padres in a must-win situation. And at worst, even if you lose the game 4-3, 5-4, you're still going to win because you're getting the 1.5. There were way too many scenarios here that made sense for a Padres win with the 1.5. And right now they lead 4-3. Last night we were 4-for-4 on the live betting with the Padres and the Dodgers. You got to pay attention to the live betting. That's where the best odds are in these baseball games, despite the fact that I'll tell you who I think is going to win tomorrow, and you can do what you want with it, and where I think the smart money goes, in my opinion. But you simply got to look at the live betting. It's really the best chance to make any money. Coming up in about 12 minutes or so. We'll get into the Cowboys, well, not just the Cowboys situation, but the Dolphins quarterback situation, which is also very much in flux right now. The Cowboys are waiting to get their big quarterback back. I'm still shocked that they're talking about the fact that Tua is going to be back soon for the Dolphins. That blows me away that they wouldn't be extra careful with him, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But when we return, an update on the Cowboys quarterback situation, and that's Dak Prescott. That's next on the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. In the second hour of the show, one 800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. I'm telling you, I think all of these league divisional series, NLDS, ALDS, I think all of these series are going to be compelling watches. I really do, with the exception of the Yankees, who I have felt as strongly about. I know there'll be the people out there that listen to say, oh, it's because you're a Yankee fan and you're from the Northeast. No, it's because I've watched the Yankees play the Indians for the last decade, postseason included, and anybody who's done that would know that the Yankees are a good pick and that this series probably won't be that competitive. It's in terms of games. I'm not saying the games may not be close, but I'm saying in terms of the number of games. This series is not going 5 games. And it may not even go 4 games. If the Yankees win game 2 tomorrow at Yankee Stadium, this thing may end in 3. With Luis Severino going in game 3. And if you looked at him his last couple of starts, yeah, good luck with that if you're the Indy. I almost did it. I almost did it. We need to have like a sound effect of me getting tased or something like that. Can we work on that? Because every time I say the I word instead of Guardians, yeah, I deserve it. Tweet at the show at the back page if you want to. Also, 1-800-224-2004 is the phone number. Padres lead the Dodgers 4-3. As I said, bottom of the 7th. 1 out for the Dodgers, and they have a runner on first. We will keep you abreast as to what is going on. Hello to our Dallas audience, our friends listening to 97.1 The Freak in Dallas. We added them to the show just over a week ago. Love being on in the Big D. And look, I mean, the Cowboys are one of the biggest stories in the NFL this year, not just because of the Dak Prescott injury, but the fact they're 4-1 since that injury. And I've made it clear, I am all in on the Cowboys right now. And I say that as somebody that grew up as a Giants fan. So I don't say that with any sort of ease at all, that I'm going to be disowned by my friends back east. I mean, the Cowboys defense is among the best, if not the best, in the NFL through the first 5 weeks of the season. You can put San Francisco right there as well with what the 49ers are doing defensively, and that is why I'm, despite the quarterback situations, one with the injury to Dak, the other being Joey Garoppolo, it's the reason I'm all in on those two teams. Because you know what? A lot of teams can score in this league, but not a lot of teams can defend. Not a lot of teams can get stops. Not a lot of teams can win games with their defense. There's only 3 or 4 in the league that can. And Dallas and San Francisco are those two teams, in my mind, that are the most dangerous in a sort of clumped up NFC, despite whatever the records may say. The NFC is there for the taking for a lot of different teams. I know everybody's going to look at Philadelphia at 5-0. I'm not there yet. I need to be sold, and I'm not sold yet. This isn't a team that's blowing everybody out of the water. I watch Buffalo every week. That's a team I go, wow, Super Bowl contenders, done. I could say it through 5 weeks. I don't get that feeling with Philadelphia, despite the fact they're 5-0. I love Dallas this weekend with Cooper Rush or with Dak Prescott, and it looks like, and that's where we go, it looks like that will be Dak Prescott that gets the start on, Cooper Rush that gets the start this week. With Dak Prescott throwing today, but Dak Prescott not ready to play quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys yet. You're going to get at least one more game with Cooper Rush, it sounds like. Mike McCarthy said they're preparing for Cooper to start against the Eagles. But the good news for Dallas is they don't have to rush Dak Prescott. Even if they lose this game, which they could very well lose even if Dak Prescott was the quarterback. I thought one of the more interesting things that they pointed out in practice today, though, and that Mike McCarthy said, is they're talking about Dak Prescott not playing with any sort of brace on his hand.
Quarterback school, the movement drills and so forth, and he'll do some light throwing at the end of practice to the receivers.
There you go. So that's, Mike McCarthy talking about some of the things that he's doing in terms of Dak Prescott. But he's going to miss his 5th straight game. And make no mistake about it, when he comes back, he's going to be judged harshly, whether that is fair or not. Especially if Dallas manages to win this game against the Eagles and all of a sudden is 5-1 tied atop the NFC East with the game already in hand on Philadelphia. And now all of a sudden Dak Prescott's got to come back. And it's not just a matter of playing well because you're Dak Prescott and you're living up to the expectations of a lofty contract and what Dallas fans are expecting of you. Not just because of that, but because of the fact that the guy that supplanted you or the guy that replaced you over the last 5 weeks could potentially be 5-0. And look, I'm in the story business. And when you're in the story business, you're rooting for chaos. No matter how it occurs, you want to see chaos. You want to see Dak come in, in week 7 and stink it up. Listen, anybody in the sports radio business who tells you they don't want to see that or that they're just hoping Dak comes back and it's great. They're lying to you. I promise you, they are lying to you. Nobody who does what I do for a living will be honest with you and say, yeah. No, they want Dak to struggle because then it's a controversy and then it's a story and then it's something to talk about for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, whether you're on 97.1 The Freak or any other sports radio station in Dallas or any other national sports radio show, because Dallas is a story across the country because they're the Cowboys and their fans are everywhere. There are people out there rooting for chaos. They want Cooper Rush to win this week and Dak to come in next week and throw 3 interceptions, in a 7-point loss and everybody losing their minds. That's what they want, I promise you. But Dallas, the Cowboys are going to have to be patient when Dak Prescott comes back, keeping in mind, these guys don't play a ton during preseason. Then he comes in the first game, doesn't play well. The Cowboys as a team don't play well. They didn't have Michael Gallup. They weren't particularly healthy in that game. And they lose to a Buccaneers team that really hasn't been all that impressive this year. And then the switch gets flipped when Cooper Rush comes in. And other guys around him start to step up. The defense takes over and says, hey, we're going to have to win this ourselves. But then all of a sudden you start to figure out that Cooper Rush can actually make some throws. And he doesn't make the bad throws that cost you games. And all of a sudden you look up and you're 4-1 going into week 6. I mean, think about, and I say this all the time, it is the beauty of the NFL and the week-to-week nature of it. The soap opera that is the NFL. If before week 1 against the Cowboys, I had told you the team would be 4-1 and Dak Prescott would not have started 4 of the first 5 games, you'd laugh me out the door. You'd say, go do something else for a living. You shouldn't be talking about sports. But here we are. Dallas with an opportunity this week to take over the top of the NFC East if they can manage a win against an Eagles team that nobody's been able to solve so far through the first 5 games of the season. Even though Arizona was darn close and just missed by a field goal. I mean, go and look at Philadelphia right now. They're good. They're not blowing the doors off anybody. 135 points scored. That's impressive. And they're doing a great job defensively. They're not as good as the Cowboys, but they're really good defensively. Oh, I can't wait for this game this week. Can you tell? Can you tell how excited I am for the Cowboys and the Eagles? Sunday Night Football on NBC. Oh, man. I thought last week was a great test run, though, for the Cowboys going into Los Angeles. Granted, that is not the most hostile of environments, and being able to win on the road against a hungry, well, what should have been a hungry team. I won't say it's a hungry team because they aren't playing like a hungry team, but given how bad they've been early on or how mediocre they've been early on this season at 2-3. That team should be hungrier in Los Angeles. The Rams just have the hangover right now, and I don't know if it's ever going to be something that gets any better for them. All right, from one quarterback situation in Dallas to another quarterback situation in Miami. We'll get to that. If you got a call, give it to us. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. I love how the Cowboys have handled this Dak Prescott situation so far, despite everything you heard from Jerry Jones a week or 2 weeks in, and whether or not he was rooting for a quarterback controversy and all these different things that were said. How they're actually handling the Dak Prescott situation, I think, so far, is about as well as you can handle it. 1-800-224-2004 on Twitter at the back page. We'll return with more of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. Okay, what's the name? That's Mel in Dallas. Got it. Thank you. I'll take him on the other side. Yep. Okay. Cool. Just be ready. "26 minutes past the hour. Almost halfway through this Wednesday show already. Dennis Bernstein coming up in about 15 minutes. Does a great job with Sirius XM on the NHL. thefourthperiod.com as well. And somebody I've trusted to talk about hockey because, look, a lot of people will fake it and pretend they watch every single sport every single minute of every single day when they do these shows. I don't fake it. Of the four major sports, the NHL is the one I watch the least of. And that's not because I don't appreciate or love the sport. I did play-by-play for it when I was in high school and have been around the sport for a long time. But it's not a sport, when you talk about everything that it's competing with, that gets my attention generally until we get to December or January. So we haven't done a ton of hockey on this show. In fact, we haven't done any. But we will coming up in about 13 minutes with Dennis Bernstein from thefourthperiod.com and SiriusXM NHL. So let me get to, I hope I got his name right, Mel in Dallas, who wants to talk about the Cowboys with us. Listen on 97.1 The Freak. What's going on, Mel? So you don't want Dak Prescott to... So wait a second. Let me ask you, Mel. So when Dak is healthy, if Cooper Rush is still winning, you still want him to be the starting quarterback? I love it. All right. Love it. Love it. Mel, appreciate the call in Dallas, listening on The Freak. All right. You saved me some, man. Appreciate the call. Good stuff from good stuff from Mel in Dallas. Man, he's fired up. I'll have what he's having. I wonder how. I mean, look, I don't know if Mel speaks for all of Cowboys fans all over the country, but I wonder how many Cowboy fans, if you did a secret poll, not public, because some people may not want to put their names to the idea or faces to the idea of, yeah, we want Cooper Rush to stay in as quarterback. But I'll bet you secretly there's a lot of Cowboy fans that are saying the same thing. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. And you can operate in that space if you're a fan. But the Cowboys as an organization don't have that luxury, because if Dak Prescott is ready and you're not starting a guy who's making all that money that he is, there's going to be a lot of problems. And ego gets involved, and I know Dak, may try to keep that out of it, but it wouldn't be unnatural if he wasn't feeling slighted if they didn't start him and he was healthy. And like I said, you can always go back to Cooper Rush. If Dak has 2 god-awful games and the Cowboys lose, do I think they're going back to Cooper Rush? Hell yeah, they're going back to Cooper Rush. But if you start Cooper Rush and a Dak Prescott is a healthy scratch and just sitting on the sideline holding the clipboard, I got news for you. When you have to go back to Dak, I don't know if you have him checked in mentally or not. Cooper Rush will be ready to go. You know that. So I think Dak's going to be the starter, whether Cooper Rush wins in Week 5 or not. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004, and on Twitter, you can hit me up as well, at the back page. So Dak Prescott is one quarterback situation. There's a few around the league right now in terms of guys that aren't healthy. Tua Tagovailoa is the other, and we all have chronicled this situation. The concussion that wasn't clearly diagnosed a few weeks back, then the scary incident against Cincinnati and the game against the Bengals where He had to be carted off the field, his fingers all locked up, something that I don't know if any of us will forget. And then last week, his backup, Teddy Bridgewater, gets taken off the field. He's in concussion protocol. So Skylar Thompson had to come in. Now all of a sudden the Dolphins have lost 2 games in a row. And Tua, while not ready to come back yet, is starting to throw, which I have to be honest, I'm shocked that he's already back out there throwing, that he's been cleared to come back already with the kind of condition we saw him carried off in. I mean, it sounds to me like he could be back in the next week or two, which is kind of crazy to think of.
Really, in these situations, you are relying on all medical advice and what people can do, and what I've been told is he can go out and throw and do some individual work this week. Today. So that's exciting for everybody, just because, really we just miss his personality. He's a guy that we rely on, not to mention all of his play and all that stuff. Now, when talking about this week and playing, I don't see a scenario. I don't see him being active, and I'm not gonna. I do not plan to have him play at all. It's something that this whole process is a little tricky, and today he's just getting back to playing football for the first time in 2 weeks. He hasn't been on a field playing football in 2 weeks. So today the focus is, again, I'm not trying to get ahead of myself and think about the Z component. I'm worried about A, and A is getting him on the field and having him throw a football and being around his teammates.
So there you go. Mike McDaniel, the head coach of the Dolphins, giving you a sense for where we are right now in the Tua Tagovailoa integration process, I guess you could call it. They had better, let me tell you something. I know I'm stating the obvious here, but they had better check every box, and even every box that isn't even there. They better check everything to make sure that this guy is 100% cleared and ready to play. Because if there is a next time where he's being carted off the field because of some sort of head trauma or concussion or brain-related injury, I mean, you might as well just shut it all down. You have got to be 100% sure. And I know some people like say 120%. There's no such thing. There's 100% sure. You need to be 100% sure that he is ready to come back. And if he's not, hey, man, it might suck for your season aspect, your prospects and your aspirations and what this team could have been. But this guy's health is far more important. How about the Padres? The Crow Show on full display in Los Angeles. Jake Cronenworth, a home run. Padres lead the Dodgers 5-3. Top of the 8th. They got 2 runners on, threatening to score more. And boy, could have a 1-1 series going back to San Diego for Game 3 of this series. I'm telling you, other than the Yankee series, I think they're all going to be fun watches. I really do. Keep in mind, the Padres only, which I'm stunned to think about, the Padres won 89 games this year. It's not like they put up some huge win total and, the Dodgers were just really good. I know they played pretty good down the stretch, but the Padres won 89 games. Among the least of anybody to make the postseason. Dennis Bernstein talks NHL with us from SiriusXM. Next on the Cash In, SportsMap Radio. That caller was funny. Yeah. We roll along on this Wednesday edition of the show. Padres lead the Dodgers 5-3. Bottom of the 8th in Los Angeles. People will say I don't talk enough hockey. And I look, you can beat up on me for it. It felt like the season sort of snuck up on us because we only started doing the show, 6 weeks ago? And you're right at the start of football season and then the baseball postseason and everything, and then before you know it, here we are, and hockey's already started. So I'm happy to get this guy on because he's really one of my go-to guys when it comes to talking about the NHL. Dennis Bernstein, thefourthperiod.com, also SiriusXM NHL. Dennis, good to talk to you, my friend. I was going through some of the storylines for this season and trying to get a grasp for where we are as we start this 2022-2023 campaign. So I guess the first obvious question is, do the Avalanche have what it takes to repeat and run this thing back, or are we still on Tampa Bay? I mean, where do we go here?
Well, first of all, it's great to talk to you, JP. It's always great, and we'll rectify the lack of hockey talk starting now.
All right.
Yes, Colorado has the goods to get to the Cup final. It's so difficult to repeat, though, that I'm not sure they could do that test because winning 16 playoff games back-to-back seasons without Nas Kadri, and that could be the missing link that might cause them not to win. But it's not fair to watch them tonight because they're playing Chicago, who's really not planning on winning any games this year. So they have the goods. They brought back Nichushkin. The core is still there. You're going to go with Georgia, then Francouz and Met, so that could be a weak point as well. But I certainly think that they have enough to emerge and get out of the West. In the East, Tampa was going to try to go for a fourth consecutive Cup final berth. I think there's enough quality in that division or in that conference. The Rangers looked great last night, and they did a reverse to Tampa. And usually the Rangers last season, JP, they gave up a lot of shots to bailed them out. Last night it was Vasilevsky trying to bail out Tampa Bay. So the Rangers look really dangerous. They have a really solid team. I love Carolina, Toronto. Well, if they're going to insist on losing to teams like Montreal tonight, JP, they're not going to be a factor. But I would think that Colorado has the better shot at going back to the Cup final right now than Tampa Bay. A year older, Point wasn't playing. Kucherov plays the whole year. But at this point, I would think that Colorado has a legit shot to defend their title. I don't think it happens once we get to June, though.
One of the concerns with the Rangers last year was, outside of the power play, when they were even strength, where was the offense going to come from? Take a look at them this year. What did they do in the offseason that sort of helped that situation?
Well, I think when you look at their middle, I think Vinny Trocheck is just a better player than Ryan. And I like Ryan Strome. But Trocheck's that more 200-foot player. You look at last night, he played 22 minutes in that victory. I think that's it. And then you're going to have to get progression from the younger kids, like Alexis Lafreniere, who's playing on the line with Trocheck, Kako, who's going to probably start with Kreider and Zibanejad on the top line. They're going to need some growth from there. But their defense is really solid. So I think the two young kids and Trocheck should get about the same production as Strome did. But the reason they won those playoff games, they came back and rallied to win 2 Game 7s, is their star players. They delivered. And when you watch Mika Zibanejad last night, he looks like an MVP candidate. And remember, he got traded for Derek Brassard. And I know that Scott Gordon isn't there anymore, and he's up in Montreal now, but what a gift he gave to the Rangers is a departing gift. So don't think Chris Kreider's going to get to 50, but I think this is a deep, dangerous team that can go. They're a sexy pick, JP. A lot of people are picking them to win the Cup. They might get to the Cup final. We'll see about their depth on the bottom 6. If that's going to be probably the big question with respect to, like you said, will they have enough offense on the bottom 6 to go 4 rounds and ultimately win the Stanley Cup in June?
Dennis Bernstein, SiriusXM on the NHL, thefourthperiod.com, giving us a few minutes here on the Cash In SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. What the Seahawks did prior to the draft, the 2022 NHL draft, they did this sort of rebuild. And a lot of people started to ask questions about when Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves could eventually be moved. Is there a sense for a timeline on them to make that sort of decision, or are they just going to wait as long as possible?
I think they wait as long as possible to raise the market, and I think it's more likely that Patrick Kane leaves as opposed to Jonathan Taves. Because remember, JT wears this tee. I think he wants to. With Patrick Kane, I think it's just a question of, like, how much losing is he going to be able to stand? Because you watch the game tonight, they're overmatched against the Avalanche. They're going to lose a lot of games in the first, let's say, 20 games of the season. So the first quarter of the season, if they're out of the box 4-16, I know Patrick loves it, and he's an icon in Chicago, and if I was making $10 million a year, I might not want to leave Chicago either. But a guy who's won and won before and won multiple, he's won multiple cups. I just think, and he's in the walk here. So I think he wants to maximize that next contract. And there's teams that are going to be attractive to him. So I think at this point, I think Patrick Kane's the one more like. And that's what you hear. The chatter you hear around the league is it's going to be Patrick Kane that will be moved. I think it can happen. Look, it's up to Chicago. It's up to Patrick Kane when he wants to go. But a player who has built a legacy there, a legacy of winning, to go through what they're going to go through this season, I just think he's going to tap out early. He's going to say, okay, this is clearly not for me. Go there. And maybe he comes back after the season if they get improvement. But again, I think once we get to, I would say mid-season, I think he's gone out of Chicago. I think JT will stick around because, again, he's the captain of the team, and I think there's got to be a little bit, I think, a bigger wish from Jonathan Taves to end this season, end his career in Chicago as opposed to Patrick Kane.
Before I get into my question on the Blue Jackets, and we're talking with Dennis Bernstein, SiriusXM Radio on the NHL, thefourthperiod.com, and before I ask you about that, did Patrick Lane get hurt tonight?
Yeah, he got hyperextended his elbow.
Okay.
So he didn't finish the game. So I think that he got hit in the boards in the corner, and he didn't complete the game. So they think it's a hyperextended elbow. So that's not a great way to start for Columbus. They didn't get a lot of offense tonight, but that's what the injury looks like.
Okay.
To Patrick Lane.
How about Johnny Gaudreau? Because obviously that was the big name on the free agent market, and he lands in Columbus. Talk about the fit there with him leaving Calgary and going to Columbus.
Well, I think he shocked everybody, right? Everybody thought he was going to play in Philadelphia because he lives in South Jersey, or maybe the Devils, or maybe the Islanders. He winds up in Columbus. And I know people rip Columbus or make fun of it, but I've been in that market. It's a great market. The Capital District's down there. The organization's first class. And they pony up the money, JP. So I just look at their centers, and I'm saying, okay, so Boone Jenner, no disrespect to Boone Jenner, well, maybe a little bit disrespect, he's their first-line center. He's not a first-line center. Like Jack Roslovic, Cole Sillinger, ultimately he's 19 years old. He may be the number one. My question to you, they don't have the same talent in Calgary, in Columbus as in Calgary. So I think if you're a fantasy player, you think Johnny Gaudreau is going to go over 100 points. I don't see how that happens because Boone Jenner is not the guy who's going to be able to facilitate. Now, granted, Johnny is a passer. I think it'll be exciting. I think the team will be better because they were tough out last season. They were a tough team to beat. Their offense will be appreciably better with Johnny, but I don't think he's going to be close to leading the league. I think this team will still be challenged to score because if you look at their depth chart, it's really not a playoff caliber team with respect to their offense.
All right, I want to get one fan base really excited, so I'm going to ask this question. There'll be one fan base in America that loves the answer to it, and probably a whole bunch that aren't happy. But if you talk about teams last year that struggled, who is the team that you expect to make the biggest jump? Not to necessarily Stanley Cup contender, but somebody that could be a playoff team that struggled last year. I have a name in mind, but I want to see if you actually say the team that I'm thinking of.
Okay, so there's a team that had a brand new building, and they had a massive road trip to start the season, and they get hit with COVID, and they were finalists in the Eastern Conference last season. I know people, and you might be thinking of Ottawa because they added Giroux and DeBrincat, but I think the Islanders can bounce back. They signed Barzal to a long-term deal. Obviously they weren't performing for the coach for Trotz. Lane Lambert's there now, so I think the Islanders can bounce back and get to the postseason. Because they put the band back together. They didn't really make any changes. They believe that the group that they had looks more like the team that were 2 seasons ago as opposed to last year. What do you have?
I was going to say the Devils.
Okay. Well, here's the thing with the Devils, Jake. You want to tell me how many games Jack Hughes plays? Because he's so small and frail. I don't know if he's going to get through 82 games. I assume Mackenzie Blackwood's going to be somewhat back to the form he was a couple of seasons ago. So they have a right to be excited in Jersey because they're going to be an exciting team. Hamilton broke his jaw last year. That derailed him. I think there's too much competition in that division to think the Devils can make a big leap, but I think they're on the right track.
A lot of eyes are going to be, and rightfully so, are going to be on Alex Ovechkin throughout the season with the landmark goal mark that he's looking to achieve. Yep. We talk about this all the time in other sports, and we try to compare. I mean, this has to be the granddaddy of them all when you talk about hockey, isn't it?
Yeah, you're breaking Wayne Gretzky's record.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's who, and it's not that it's like it was thought no one would ever break that record. Like his point record is going to be unbreakable. I mean, the guy scored 92 goals in one season, so you would have thought that okay, there's no chance. But I just think he's going to keep playing until he breaks the record, and I think that the owner loves him. The owner signed him to an extension. I just think he keeps chugging along, regardless of how the team is, and I think the team. That's one of these teams. If you're looking for a team to come out of the playoffs, it looks like Washington. They're all banged up. They didn't play well, not good defensively tonight. But he should just keep chugging along until he breaks the record. So yes, that was an unattainable, quote unquote, unattainable record. But there were a lot of them in sports in general. So, but yeah, he's going to keep. And look, I think he can score 50 goals again. He's going to get set up. That might be the best thing about the Capitals this year because they're, I think, in a little bit of jeopardy about making the playoffs this season with an older team that's banged up right now.
Great job from Dennis Bernstein. Check him out. SiriusXM NHL does a great job. And the fourthperiod.com as well. Find him on Twitter at DennisTFP. My man, it's good to talk to you. I'm glad we got to do this, and hopefully we get to do it again soon.
Anytime you need me, JP, it's great being on SportsMap with you. No
Love
problem.
it. Dennis Bernstein, love talking to the guy. It's been so long. That I have to admit, it's one of the cooler parts to getting back on after being off for literally 6 years is getting to talk to guys that were like staples of the shows that I did nationally back in the NBC Sports Radio days. And still being able to connect with them and pick up the phone and not having talked to Dennis in like 6 years and having a conversation like we just talked 5 minutes ago. Love that guy. Seriously, he's terrific. And check him out on Twitter. Dennis TFP, SiriusXM NHL Radio as well. One of my many old stomping grounds. SiriusXM. All right, good to talk with him. Good to talk with you, too. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. You can hit us up on Twitter as well, at The Back Page. Again, on Twitter, at The Back Page, if you're looking to chime in on anything we've discussed during this hour of the show. Padres, how about it? Just 3 outs away, 4 outs, make that 4 outs away from a 1-1 split in the first 2 games of this best-of-5 National League Divisional Series with the Dodgers. Yu Darvish was good tonight. Josh Hader is on now, trying to figure out how to get this thing closed down. But the Padres lead the Dodgers 5-3. We gave you the live betting line. 5th inning, I told you, when it was 3-3, take the Padres plus the 1.5. Now they're up 5-3. We're on a winning streak here with the live betting during the baseball. We'll be 5 for our last 5. And they're all on this Padres-Dodgers series, which I feel like I got a pretty good handle on. Hopefully I'm right with the predictions for tomorrow's games. Mariners and the Astros, the early game, 3:38 p.m. Eastern for first pitch there. And then the Yankees are the nightcap, 7:38 p.m. Eastern. Yankees and the Guardians in New York, with the Yankees looking to take a 2-0 series in that lead, and I think they will. I think Seattle gets it evened up tomorrow in Houston as well. Stick around. We'll come back, wrap up this hour of the cash-in, tell you what's going on between the Dodgers and Padres, too. It's SportsMap Radio. All right, top of the hour right around the corner. Padres 3 outs away from a Game 2 win in Los Angeles. 5-3 Padres on top of the Dodgers. Some home runs in this game. A lot of solo runs. But I'll tell you, give the Padres credit. They did what they had to do. They got a split. And that's all you can ask for. Get the split. All right. The phone number, as always, 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004 on Twitter at the back page. In the next hour of the program, the roughing the passer controversy through the eyes of defensive players. We'll get into that. Aaron Rodgers is dealing. I'm telling you, there's just quarterbacks banged up. A lot of quarterback news today. Aaron Rodgers dealing with a thumb injury. One of his former teammates is dealing with an assault charge from the Kansas City Police Department. We'll get into that. And you'll hear from Monty Poole, who does a great job covering the Warriors for NBC Sports Bay Area. Get into it with him on the Draymond Green situation. See if the Padres can wrap this up. Another hour of the cash-in is right around the corner. Stay with us. I'm Jason Page, SportsMap Radio and the SportsMap Radio app. Final hour of a Wednesday/Thursday edition of the show. We're into the Thursday hour on the East Coast. Thank you, Chad Erickson, for loaning us your amazing voice for all the intros and rejoins on this show. Dude is fantastic. And thanks to you guys for tuning in tonight. Thank you to our producer, engineer, Austin Rodriguez, working on the show back in Houston, pushing all the buttons at SportsMap Radio. Don't forget you can listen to us on the SportsMap Radio app as well. And if you haven't done so yet, you're missing out. You haven't checked out the jock market, jockmkt.com. Yeah, maybe the stock market is struggling for you these days. Jock MKT, every day is a new chance to make money. jockmkt.com. Download the app. It goes by the same name, jockmkt.com. It's fantasy, but cooler. It's the opportunity to go and buy shares in your favorite players for a particular game or a particular slate of games. Give you an example. Tonight, we had Ronald Acuna Jr., who do we have aside? Oh, we had Bryce Harper. We had Acuna Jr. and Bryce Harper in the early playoff game, the Phillies and the Braves, and we made some money. It's kind of fun. Just picked up a small amount in both, and then we're able to make some money when the two of them both played fairly well in what was a low-scoring game. 3-0, the Braves got the win. And then we picked up some players in a free roll. They've got some free rolls on there also that you can try. It's awesome. Go and try it out. jockmkt.com. It's like the stock market, only with athletes. That's why it's jockmkt. It's like the jock market. Stay in the game. And right now, claim your 100% deposit bonus by going to jockmkt.com and using the promo code CASHIN. CASHIN. jockmkt.com or download the Jock MKT app. Claim your 100% deposit bonus up to $100 on your first deposit. Promo code CASHIN. We're coming back with some quarterback news and also some police blotter news. It's next. Cash In, SportsMap Radio. So here's what I want to do for the podcast, Austin. I want to take the first segment. You knew the Padres weren't going to be able to get out of this game with a little bit of drama, right? Josh Hader is on the mound, trying to hang on to a 5-3 lead. Freddie Freeman doubled to lead off the inning. He almost hit the ball out of the park. So Los Angeles with Freeman on second, 2 outs, and I think it's Will Smith at the plate. But they trail 5-3, so unless Smith goes yard here, well, you never know. It's crazy. It's a crazy game. We've seen some crazy stuff in this baseball postseason already. Just ask the Mariners as it relates to their Game 1 loss against the Houston Astros. 1-800-224-2004, 800-224-2004. Hit me up on Twitter if you want on anything at the back page, on Twitter at the back page. I want to get to, we usually do NFL look-aheads in terms of the spreads for all the games. We're going to do that in the next segment. We'll get to that in the next segment. We'll talk about what's coming up as far as our NFL picks for this week. So that's coming up. It's all over, by the way, in Los Angeles. A win for the Padres. Yu Darvish was fantastic. Josh Hader, a little messy, but he closes it out 5-3. San Diego defeats the Dodgers and evens that series at 1 game apiece. Headed back to Petco Park in San Diego for game number 3. We should go down to that game. It's only a couple hours down the road from where we are. Yeah, that would be fun. Gonna have to take out our checkbooks, though. Tickets for that are not going to be cheap, I can promise you. That place has been waiting for postseason baseball with fans in the stands for a while, so people are going to be all fired up for that series. All right, so let me get through a few NFL items that I want to hit. One, the roughing the passer controversy in the NFL. Credit to Rob Maddie, who did a great piece on it for the Associated Press, and I was going through it today. And look, this is a huge problem for this league. It's a matter of credibility at this point. And they can talk all they want about changing the rules in the offseason and the competition getting together and competition committee getting together and Jim Irsay, who's the owner of the Colts, saying, yeah, we've got to do something about this. But what do you do for the rest of the season? I know it would be crazy to change the rules in the middle of the season. And I know they just did something with relation to how they're treating concussions, and that's a different issue because it's player safety related. You cannot literally change the rules in the middle of the season. But the league's got to talk to the officials. They got to talk to the officials on the field and make it clear to them that they cannot throw some of these flags. Again, it's a crisis of credibility for the league. When you've got quarterbacks being tackled in the backfield, also known as a sack, and you've got officials throwing flags for no damn reason whatsoever. And again, I talked about this with regard to the NBA the other night. I'm not tinfoil conspiracy guy. I am not that guy. But when you see calls like this, you are going to have people in the day and age where sports betting is legal. You are going to have people questioning the credibility and the integrity of the officiating and the integrity of these games now that sports betting's legal. Even when it wasn't legal in this country, you had people questioning it. How many people do you think are going to question it now that sports betting is legal throughout half of this country, and soon enough it'll be available in most of the country? You have to if you're the league. You have to have some sort of mechanism in place to address this issue. A challenge system of some sort. And that's what Jim Irsay said. He said he would support replay for these types of penalties like we saw with Tom Brady being sacked by the Falcons on Sunday, and then the one in the Chiefs game on Monday night. Quote from Irsay to the Associated Press. I think that's a wise way to go because there's too much inequity with what's able to be challenged and reviewed and what's not. You challenge that call in Kansas City, you win every time. It's not even close. So I think that's the way to go. Nothing ever makes it perfect, and he's right there. It's a fast game, and there's emphasis put on safety now as it should be, but you can't go overboard and ruin the game because the game is special. Of course, quarterbacks, they're saying protect us as much as possible. But, I mean, those are, 30 guys. There's a lot more defensive players that are being punished and penalized, and the impact on the game is just too much. The league has got to do something about it. All right, from the roughing the passer controversy to Aaron Rodgers. Don't worry, he's going to play this week, but he didn't practice much today. Jordan Love got the first team reps as Aaron Rodgers is dealing with a thumb injury that he suffered on the very last play of the Packers' loss against the Giants. O'Shane Imines sacked Rodgers on a Hail Mary attempt, hit Rodgers' throwing arm, forced a fumble. And after the game, you actually saw Daniel Jones in the postgame. There's actual audio of it where he goes up to Rodgers and says, "Hey, are you okay?" And Rodgers says, "I'm fine." And a lot of people didn't know what that was in regard to. Now we actually know. He knew Rodgers had injured his thumb on that play. Rodgers talked about the hit on Wednesday, said he didn't really know until the adrenaline wore off that it started to hurt. He did not practice today, as I said, but they don't have much concern as far as him being able to start for the team against the Jets on Sunday at Lambeau Field. And I think the Packers will figure out a way to win that game. They ain't got to win pretty, but I think they'll figure out a way to win that game. So Aaron Rodgers dealing with the thumb, should be ready to go when we talk about the game on Sunday. And we'll get into that game. We'll look at all the lines on all the NFL games coming up in just about 5 minutes here on the show. This is, it's crazy. Devonte Adams charged with misdemeanor assault. Yep. We talked about it on the show last night. He pushed a freelance photographer that was working for ESPN on Monday Night Football after the game ended as he was going off the field. And look, I was hoping it wouldn't come to this. I thought cooler heads would prevail and that authorities in Kansas City would be a little smarter on prosecuting a case like this. Look, he's not going to jail or anything like that. I'm sure they'll settle it and he'll have to do some sort of community service or something. But just the fact that this has to be a story that the Chiefs have to talk about. Granted, it was stupid what he did. It was not a smart thing to do. And I'm normally the first one that'll jump up and say, look, you got to take responsibility. And he does. But you got to give the guy a police record because a freelance photographer kind of runs in front of him as he's coming off the field. He's frustrated after a tough loss, and then he pushes the guy down. Adams was cited for an intentional, overt act that inflicted bodily injury. Misdemeanor assault for shoving that credentialed worker. The guy's name is Ryan Zebley, the victim in the case. Suffered, according to authorities, he suffered whiplash, a headache, and a possible minor concussion from the incident. Again, I'm not laughing at the guy for assuming he suffered any of those injuries. That's not what I'm laughing at all. I'm just laughing at the fact that everything is a lawsuit. Everything. I guarantee you this guy winds up, suing, saying he can't work anymore, and Devonte Adams is going to have to pay this guy for the rest of his life. Like, seriously. Adams will be doing court November 10th. If he's convicted, he could face a jail term of up to 6 months or a fine of up to $1,000. I think it'll be the latter rather than the former. Adams apologized after the game, saying the shove was just frustration. No timetable for a decision from the NFL. And look, they're probably going to wind up suspending him for a game. I said it earlier in the week with our producer that was working on the show Monday and Tuesday, John Belmer, who's like, nah, I don't think they'll suspend him. They're going to suspend him for a game. When you start getting criminal charges involved, they're going to suspend him for a game. And you got to be smarter than that if you're Devonte Adams. We live in a day and age where you do that sort of thing and you're gonna get people upset. And there's just no getting around it. He's a lot bigger, probably a lot stronger than the guy he pushed down, but criminal charges, really? All right. The Week 6 NFL lineup. We will go through the games, the lines as they stand on Wednesday night, tell you who we like, who we'll stay away from, as we continue on the Cash In. I'm Jason Page on this Wednesday night on SportsMap Radio. And Austin, you'll be ready to do. So you didn't go down to Arenas at all? tomorrow. All right, let's go through the lines for week 6 in the NFL. I love getting sort of ahead of things and starting to get a sense for where we're going to go for Paige's picks, which comes your way every Friday on the show. 9-10 on the season, by the way. Not my best work so far. Not my best work so far. 9-10 or 10-11? Sorry, 10-11 on the season so far. So, one game under 500. It's one game worth of lost money, but we can turn it around. I'm just getting back into this. You gotta cut me a little slack, right? All right, week 6. Let's run through them rapid fire. We'll start with the game tomorrow night, which kicks off week 6, the Commanders and the Bears. Look, we're going to do the live betting stuff that we always do on Thursday nights with this game, but I got to tell you, I'm probably going to spend most of the show just laughing at how bad both of these teams are. Maybe I'll be surprised and we'll get a compelling game. And I have no idea why I don't have any logical reason to tell you why I like the over in this game, because both of these offenses stink. But at 37.5, you'd think these teams could put up 38 by accident. I mean, they could play badly. The defenses could score 7 each, and you'll figure out some way to get over 37.5. I wouldn't put a dime on it. I'm just saying purely for entertainment purposes. This game is 37.5. That's probably the lowest under you will see all year in the NFL, the lowest total you'll see all year in the NFL, and I think somehow, some way, it winds up going over the 37.5. Don't bet on it. I'm just telling you, if I had a hunch, that's where I would put it. The Buccaneers and the Steelers, we know the situation in Pittsburgh right now is bleak. They got their doors blown off by the Bills last week. The Buccaneers have just not been that good offensively, though. And that's obviously a big source of concern. They played pretty well in the first half last week, and then second half against Atlanta, they got nothing. And if not for the bad roughing the passer call against Jarrett late in that game, you might be talking about Atlanta winning in Tampa Bay. But the Buccaneers did find a way to survive. They're 3-2. Not a game I would probably do all that much with. It is Pittsburgh getting 8.5 at home. I usually like home underdogs. This is not one I would touch, though. Jacksonville and the Colts, a huge game in the AFC South. Jacksonville having lost 2 games in a row. And look, I mean, them losing to the Texans is a bit of a red flag for me. You know, I'm high on them. I after, the first few weeks of the season, I was on the bandwagon as far as them winning the AFC South. But when you lose to the Houston Texans, that's just bad. I mean, Houston's really not a good football team. Jacksonville plus 1.5. It's basically a pick'em game. Jacksonville getting 1.5 in Indianapolis. 42.5 is the number. It's not a game I have a lot of confidence in. I probably wouldn't touch it. The Bengals and the Saints, we don't know who's going to start at quarterback for the Saints, and I think it's very difficult to make a determination on where to put your money there. It is the Saints getting 1.5 at home right now. Jameis Winston may play. He is practicing. If not, it'll be Andy Dalton. The Jets plus 7 in Green Bay against the Packers, and people are buying into the Jets. I saw people talking about the fact that Robert Saleh was saying, we're going to be taking receipts on, who's down on us and who's poo-pooing us throughout the year. Now, all of a sudden, Jets have won a couple games in a row, granted, against the Steelers. But what they did against the Dolphins, you can't ignore that. Teddy Bridgewater hurt or not, Tua not there or not, Skylar Thompson starting or not, they still scored a lot of points in that game. Although I think part of that is the fact that Miami's defense just isn't as good as we think it is. Plus, it had to be on the field a lot because the offense couldn't do all that much. I think the Jets come back down to earth this week. I like the Packers minus the 7. I don't know if it's one I run to the betting window with, but I do like the Packers minus 7 as of right now. Patriots and the Browns in Cleveland. I'll tell you, man, Bailey Zapp. When you can win with Bailey Zapp, I bow down at the altar of Bill Belichick. He's winning with his third-string quarterback. He almost won in Green Bay. He wins the game this past weekend. Cleveland's been pretty good with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. I know Deshaun Watson will be the starting quarterback there eventually. And the Browns lost on a last-second field goal miss on Sunday. I do like the Browns this week minus 2.5. I think they figure out a way to get a win at home. Vikings and the Dolphins, the Skylar Thompson show, I guess, continues. It looks like he'll be getting the start this week. This line does not make a lot of sense to me when you consider how bad the Dolphins were against the Jets. I think the Vikings are better than the Jets. I get that the game is in Miami. I like Minnesota minus 3.5 on the road as of right now. Baltimore and the Giants. The Giants are 4-1, and they're still 6-point underdogs at home against the Ravens, which tells you all you need to know about where the respect factor is for them right now. It doesn't exist. People are not buying the Giants yet at 4-1. I'm not either. But 6 points? I love me some home underdogs. The Ravens have disappointed and played very uneven football. If I'm going anywhere there, it's probably the Giants plus 6. And if you're looking for a value bet, the Giants on the money line at plus 210. San Francisco and the Falcons, the 49ers, best defense along with the Cowboys in the NFL right now. And, Atlanta's getting 5.5 at home. They have been in every single game. It's tough not to bet Atlanta because they're cover machines. I don't know if that ends this week. I probably wouldn't touch it because San Francisco is just so good. If anything, I'd probably go towards the under in this game, which is 44.5. Panthers in Los Angeles to take on a Rams team that should be really upset right now. The Rams should be steaming with the way they've played through the first 5 games at 2-3, coming off of a Super Bowl. But I just continue to see a team with a lack of urgency. It's a 10-point spread with Carolina getting 10. I'm not touching it the way the Rams have played through the first 5 games of the season. Cardinals and Seahawks. The line is Cardinals minus 3 on the road in Seattle. I love the Seahawks in this spot, having lost last week. Geno Smith is playing great football. Give me Seattle plus the 3. The Bills minus 2.5 in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. Certainly one of the games of the week. Hard to bet against Kansas City at home. Probably a game I'll just enjoy watching. Maybe over 53.5, if anything. Take the over 53.5. Cowboys, I told you I love them, plus 6 in Philadelphia against the Eagles. I will run with the Cowboys until that horse bucks me off. Love the Cowboys right now, the way they're playing. Plus 6 on the road. Money line plus 215 is also worth looking at. Sunday night game, Broncos and the Chargers. Monday night game, Broncos and the Chargers. Too early to call right now. We'll come back to that as we get closer to the end of the week. All right, we're coming back with Monty Poole, CSN, or I should say NBC Sports Bay Area, covers the Warriors. Get some thoughts with him on the Draymond Green situation. I'm Jason Page, and this is the Cash In from SportsMap Radio. Okay, you're good. Yeah, it's perfect. It should be perfectly self-contained. I did it pretty generically. Yep. I'll talk to you like 20 minutes. All right. Thanks, man. All right. I get a nice little 20-minute talking about this drama unfolding within the Warriors organization. In case you missed it, here's how Kerr described this entire Draymond Green saga.
No matter what decision you make in a situation like this, it's not going to be perfect. This is the biggest crisis that we've ever had.
Just so you know, I'm just running the
here.
replay on
really
my end, so don't
stuff.
worry. It's nothing to do with your So end. That kind of puts it in perspective. And with that backdrop, we bring in Monty Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area, does a terrific job covering the Warriors, joins us tonight here on the Cash In on SportsMap Radio, on the SportsMap Radio app. Monty, were people surprised in the room to hear Steve Kerr describe this situation in those words, to say it's the biggest crisis that this organization has faced?
No, I don't think so, because it is. You know, they've had a few, and pretty much all of them around Draymond. But this was the most extreme. You know, they had back in 2016, where Draymond and Steve Kerr got into a big squabble at halftime of a game in Oklahoma City, and Draymond got, really irate, from what I understand, and really it could have gotten physical, but cooler heads prevailed. And of course, that was in 2019, November 2018, when Draymond and Kevin Durant had their spat right there in center court for everybody. We could all see that. But this was Draymond punching down. He basically one of the team's leaders, the old head, going after one of the team's young guys, and it's off the punch, which I'm sure you have by now. It had, as Mike Tyson used to say, it had bad intentions. It wasn't a powder puff punch. So, I think that's part of it. But also, Draymond can opt out of his contract next year. Jordan Poole was trying to get an extension between now and opening night. So there's all this other stuff in the air that's going on too. So this is the kind of thing that could really kind of undo what the Warriors are trying to get together before the season starts. So we're going to find out.
Monty, I asked this at the start of the show tonight, and I'll ask it to you as somebody who covers the team. You just described all these incidents involving Draymond Green over the years. So when Steve Kerr says this is the biggest crisis we've ever faced, and I say in return to that, well, it's a crisis of your own making because of the way you've kind of allowed Draymond to act within the borders, of the sovereign state of the Golden State Warriors. It almost, to me, feels like they've sort of set the tempo or sort of set the pace by which Draymond runs on.
Yeah, I don't think that's out of the question. I think that over the last week, I think that's been a topic of discussion. Among the guys at the Warriors upstairs, did we enable this, by giving Draymond so much latitude, so much room to do things that are out of pocket, and so they also have to ask themselves, okay, if as an organization, we claim to have certain principles. Is this something that our principles will abide, will tolerate, And so these are all things that are part of this. And I think what surprised people a little bit was that Draymond was coming back as soon as he is. I think people thought it would be a little longer separation, maybe until opening night. But, this basically was 3 practices and 2 preseason games. So it wasn't a harsh sentence by any means. It was relatively easy, but it couldn't happen if not for Jordan Poole saying, look, it happened, we're done, let's just play ball. And Steve made it clear that Jordan's authorization of this whole decision was huge. If Jordan said, no, F that guy, then this wouldn't be happening. But that is apparently not what Jordan said, and Jordan and Draymond have had their own meetings, and so apparently Jordan feels comfortable moving forward with those things as they are.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting. We're talking with Monty Poole, NBC Sports Bay Area, does a terrific job on the Warriors, talking about this Draymond Green situation and the start of the Warrior season. I mean, it's a no-win situation for Jordan Poole. What's he going to say? Yeah, he's going to be the guy that breaks up the threesome of Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Stephen Curry, especially in a situation where he's trying to get the most money he can out of the Warriors prior to the start of the season. I mean, he's really in an unenviable position been. Being around the team and sort of seeing the way he's handled this situation, what have you come away with?
No, I think I'm not surprised that Jordan is over it. He prides himself on being tough. I mean, he doesn't look tough, and like I tease him, he likes cats. He's a cat guy. And you don't think a cat guy is a being tough guy, but Jordan is from Milwaukee, and he's told me many stories about, how Milwaukee basketball works and how, you can't be, if you're going to play basketball in the wintertime in Milwaukee, you got to be tough. It might be 5 degrees outside, but people go outside and play basketball. It's sort of like Milwaukee's sort of an offshoot of Chicago, where if you can handle the wintertime there, you can pretty much handle anything. And so he is tougher than he looks. And, as witness, the punch buckled his knees, but guess what? 20 minutes later, he was up there shooting jump shots in practice. And the next day, he was in a full scrimmage, and there's no mark. And he was hit other than the video we saw and what we heard. So I think Jordan is a guy who can get past this. Steve describes him as mature, and I would say in many ways he is. But I think that's part of his upbringing. His dad coached him for part of his upbringing, and they did some traveling basketball. So he's been around the block. He's seen some things in Milwaukee and on the road. So this, to him, is not a huge deal. But what made it huge is that it's an NBA deal, and everybody is talking about it for a full week.
So many people have talked about Stephen Curry's leadership in this from the player perspective. Can you give us some sort of insight in terms of, his growth as a leader and how that has sort of paid dividends for him in this situation, in this drama?
Yeah, well, Steph, one of the reasons why this organization has been as successful as it has the past 8, 9 years, 10 years, is because Steph and Steve Kerr are very much alike in the sense that they have a really great perspective on things. Basketball is great and they love it, but they also see the big picture. They always see the big picture. Like the story I tell people all the time is that last season, the Warriors lost in Phoenix. Tuesday night, I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday night, and Steph had the worst shooting night of his career. Absolute worst. Like 4 for 21 or something like it was the worst. And the Warriors flew home that night, and the next afternoon, early that afternoon, like 1 o'clock, Steph showed up at a food bank and donated millions of dollars. And basically sat and hung out with the people at the food bank, all the employees there. There was probably 100 people. I was there. Probably 100 people were there and signed autographs, took pictures. You would never have known that the previous night was the worst night of his shooting career because he put it behind him. And Steve is much the same way in that they see things beyond the game. And so I think in Steph's case, that's what he does really well. Is he makes people understand that, okay, what happened in a moment does not define what happens in a season. Doesn't define what happens in a lifetime. And he has a gift of making people understand that, yeah, this is going to suck. It shouldn't have happened. But let's think about this on the long haul. Let's take the big picture view of this and say, look, what are our options here? Do we give up on the season? Do we walk away? What do we do here? And over time, that gets into the minds of other people around him, and they kind of gravitate toward him for that. So he's not a yell guy. He's not a rah-rah guy. He's just a perspective guy and a guy who has a really mature outlook on life. And I think that's his great quality is that he just gets it, as people say. He gets it. He understands. So, and Steve is much the same way.
Well, you bring up Steve Kerr, and I mean, that's the most logical link to this story because obviously what he endured with Michael Jordan, and Michael Jordan, everybody's talked about it by now, knocking him out. And The Last Dance sort of documented that brilliantly. I mean, could there be a more perfect head coach for this sort of situation? And how hands-on has he been versus allowing the players to sort of work this out amongst themselves and decide at what pace they want Draymond Green brought back here?
Yeah, I think based on what I've heard from people inside is that there have been the way it was put to me, hundreds of conversations involving dozens of people. And Steve, Bob Myers, the general manager, Steph Curry, Jordan Poole, Draymond Green, Andre Iguodala, those Sean Livingston, who's retired but still, works for the team. These guys were all a part of these conversations and brought this back to where it is now. And again, it wouldn't be where it is now if Jordan didn't sign off on this. And I'm not surprised that he did. I'm surprised that the Warriors said, if you're okay with this, we're okay with this. And that's a little surprising. I thought they would be a little harsher.
Before I let you go, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask about the team on the court. I'm floored when I look at odds makers putting the Clippers basically in the same spot for the odds to win the NBA championship as the Warriors. I don't know how you elevate the Clippers to that point when, frankly, with this group and, with Kawhi and Paul George, and I get all the injury concerns, that people put them on the Warriors level. Do you put them there? I mean, based on what you've seen, does that seem fair to you?
I kind of get it, because when Kawhi Leonard is healthy, to me, he's a top 5 player in the league. And so if he is on his game, I think the Clippers are the biggest threat to the Warriors in the Western Conference. Now, we don't know if he'll be on his game. We've heard great things about training camp and preseason, that he looks great. He's moving well. I like what the Clippers look like with Kawhi coming back. Paul George, I think, was a tremendous player. Let's see what John Wall looks like. Let's see what Johnny Wall brings. And I think Ty Lue is a top 5 coach. So I think they're in a good position. And they have an owner in Steve Ballmer who is not unwilling to spend. I mean, he's the richest owner in the game. I think the richest owner in sports. So he's willing to do whatever it takes to win. And so I think the Warriors and Clippers are definitely the best 2 teams in the West. I think it's going to be so much fun seeing how it plays out, because there are people who think that the Clippers can be coached to defeat. And that is because I keep hearing that, Paul and Kawhi can be dealt with on offense if you have the right defenders. And in terms of making them uncomfortable, making them shoot shots they don't want to shoot. So these are things we look forward to seeing, but I think that's the joy of getting the season underway beginning next week, is that the Warriors and Clippers are, I think, the best in the West. And look at the East, I still think Milwaukee is really good. Boston, I'm a little concerned about. Philadelphia can be good. So Miami's going to be in the middle. So there's a lot of possibilities there. But I think in the West, it's Warriors and Clippers. Then you get to the Denvers and the Dallases and the Memphises and the other teams.
Great stuff from Monty Poole. NBC Sports Bay Area does a terrific job covering the Golden State Warriors. Hey, listen, I'm glad we got to catch up. Enjoy it, and hopefully we get to talk soon. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. See you soon. Take care.
I love Monty Poole joining us here on the show. And look, it's the West is just so stacked. You heard him mention, he didn't even mention the Pelicans. How good is New Orleans? I mean, the Pelicans are so good. I don't even know if we know how good they are, because obviously what they have, coming back with Zion Williams. I mean, this is a team that made the playoffs last year without Zion Williamson playing a single minute. They're going to be good. Love watching John Morant get a year older. 1-800-224-2004. 800-224-2004. Tweet at the show at the back page. We'll come back, wrap up this hour of the Cash In on SportsMap Radio. All right, tomorrow is Thursday, and that means we will have you covered for Thursday Night Football. The game that should be absolutely free. The folks at Prime Video should not charge a dime for this game. In fact, they should give refunds to people who have paid for Prime Video just to get the NHL this year. Because the Commanders and Bears, there's just no excuse for that game being on Prime Video. But that's what you got, so good luck. And you know what? It'll wind up being some great game. Like I said, the total is 37.5. And I can't tell you why. I don't have any scientific evidence, numbers to back. The game's going to wind up going over. When they put a line at 37.5, they're telling you this thing's going to be a snooze fest. And mark my words, some way, somehow, this game will wind up going over 37.5. I couldn't tell you how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. So we got that covered for you. Tomorrow night on the show, we'll do our usual live betting bonanza during the game. And obviously, we'll be keeping an eye on the baseball because the Yankee game will probably be in its late stages when we come on the air. It starts at 7:38 p.m. Eastern. We come on the air at 10 p.m. Eastern, so we'll see where we are late in that game, weather permitting. They got all sorts of weather issues in New York. So Mariners and Astros tomorrow. Enjoy that too. Good job, Austin Rodriguez, producing it back in Houston. I am Jason Page. Thank you to Monty Poole. Thank you to Dennis Bernstein. We'll catch you on Thursday night for the cash-in on SportsMap Radio. I'm Jason Page. Bye! Austin, I am sending you right now the podcast notes to put in there. All right, that's coming to you right now. Austin, have a good night. All right, be safe. Bye-bye. Alrighty. And that does it for us tonight on Twitter, Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube. Thanks to everybody who watched. Stay safe. Have yourselves a great rest of your Wednesday or start of your Thursday. We'll see you back here Thursday night when we do it all over again.